Smoke rolled over the broken plain like grey waves, and a lone human shape moved through it with a light in his hand. He stopped when a faint cry cut the silence, a small thin sound that did not belong to soldiers or machines. He turned toward the ruined shell of an alien ship. Metal hissed. Sparks fell. Then two small figures crawled out from a torn seam in the hull and lifted their hands to him. Their eyes glowed like soft moons in the dark. He felt a whisper inside his skull, not a voice he could hear, but a feeling that begged one word: help. Eli Ward did not think long. He ran. The ground under his boots was sharp with glassy dust, the kind that stuck to skin. The air tasted of burnt cables and fuel. When he reached the wreck, he saw them clearly. Two little girls with pale, pearly skin and silver veins that pulsed under it. Their hair was white blonde, almost translucent. Their thin clothes were torn, and grey ash stuck to their cheeks in streaks. "I've got you," he said, though he knew they might not speak his language. He lowered his light and spread his hands to show he had no weapon. The taller girl tried to stand and nearly fell. Eli took off his jacket and wrapped it around both of them, then lifted them together. They were light, like holding a pair of large birds. When he turned away from the ruin, the smaller girl grabbed at his sleeve with shaking fingers and pressed her forehead to his chest. He felt that soft mental whisper again, this time like a picture. A round face, a woman with the same moonlit eyes, and a sharp feeling of distance and fear. "Mother," Eli said softly. "We'll find her. I promise." Alarms echoed across the wreck field. Human salvage crews were coming, and with them laws, questions, hands that would pull these girls into a system that did not bend. Eli had worked enough border cleanups to know how that story ended. Long rooms, cold lights, translation errors, and the slow chew of bureaucracy. He shifted the girls in his arms and ran harder toward his small freighter. Inside his ship, the Rook, the air was clean and warm. He set the girls on the narrow couch by the bulkhead and brought water, a thermal blanket and the medkit. The taller one coughed until tears ran from her eyes, then drank in quick gulps. The younger one pressed her fingers to the metal cup and closed her eyes. The water in it rippled without being touched. Eli pretended not to stare. "I'm Eli," he said, tapping his chest. "Eli." The taller girl touched her own chest. "Sarah," she said carefully. She pointed to the younger one. "Leo? Sarah, Leo?" He smiled. "You're safe." He cleaned ash from their faces, checked for cuts, taped a gauze strip over a scrape on Sarah's knee. When he reached for Leo's arm, the little girl flinched. She looked up at him with bright eyes, then showed her bruise. Eli moved slowly. "It will sting," he warned. Leo nodded, a brave, tiny motion. When he pressed the med patch, he felt something like a soft pulse against his thoughts, a thankful warmth, gentle and shy, as if someone had put a small light in his chest for a moment and then faded it. He blinked. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay." Outside, heavy engines roared closer. Eli looked toward the cockpit. He made a fast choice. "Strap in," he told the girls, pointing at the belts. They didn't understand the words, but Sarah understood the action and clicked the buckle. Eli ran to the pilot's chair, slid into it, and fired the engines. The Rook lifted with a cough, dust spinning out in a wide ring. As the ship rose, 3 human salvage drones flashed red and moved to block his path. Eli's hands danced over the controls, and the Rook slipped between their arcs like a fish darting past clumsy nets. "Hang on," he said. "We're leaving." They climbed through the smoke and the thin pink clouds over the dead moon, and the wreck field fell away like a broken toy. Eli angled for the dark side and a thin orbit where no one would look twice. Only then, when the engines settled and the alarm lights went quiet, did he let himself breathe. He turned in his seat. The girls sat close together, fingers laced, watching him. He raised one hand. "No one will hurt you here." Sarah tilted her head, eyes bright. "Safe," she said, her accent soft. "Safe." "Eli." Leo reached out one small hand, then pulled it back fast as if afraid. Eli let his own hand rest on his knee, open, palm up. Leo looked at it for a long moment. Then she put her fingers on his palm. His vision flashed. The rush of wind, a high song, a city of pale towers under twin moons, and it was gone. She whispered, almost soundless, "Mother." That night, if it could be called night in orbit, Eli made a nest for them in the cargo hold, soft blankets, a heater cube, a little stack of ration bars. He showed Sarah the washroom and how the water came from the wall. She touched the stream with wonder. He set an old hollow projector near their nest and pulled up a simple show with bright animals dancing in a circle. Leo laughed at the first silly jump and clapped. When they fell asleep, curled like kittens, the lights in the corridor flickered. Eli looked up. The ship hummed, then settled as if it had sighed. He checked the power readouts and found strange noise in the system, like a whisper of static. He did not like things he could not name. He walked back to the cargo hold and watched their small chests rise and fall in the blue light. He told himself this was fine, just until he could find their family. In the morning, a shadow slid across the stars. Eli saw it on the scope, a ship, huge and silent, entering a low arc above the moon. No transponder, no ID, a curve of metal like a silver wing. It bled no heat. It looked like a piece of night with edges. Eli tried hails in standard and in trade tongues. The ship did not answer. It turned once, exactly, and stopped above the wreck field. Sarah woke and sat up as if she had felt something in a dream. Her eyes widened. "Mother?" she said. Leo pressed her hands to her own chest. "Mother," she echoed. Eli stared at the screen and then at the girls. He swallowed. "All right," he said. "We'll go slow." He brought the rook around, careful, hands light on the controls. As they dropped toward the field, the silver ship tilted to show a wide seam along its belly. The seam opened like an iris. A soft light poured out, too gentle to be a weapon. Eli set his ship down on the grey dust and waited. The air tasted like metal again when the ramp opened. The girls ran to the edge, then stopped and looked back at him. Sarah reached for his hand. Eli went with them. The ship above them lowered a platform. A figure stood on it, a woman tall and slender as a blade. Her skin held the same pearly glow as the girls, but it was etched with thin lines of light, like a map or a language. Her hair fell straight and pale down her back. When she stepped onto the ground, the dust under her feet made no sound. She looked at Eli. He felt something pass through his mind like a warm wind, leaving a clean space where fear had been. Then her gaze softened. The girls ran at her and were caught and held with a sound that needed no translation, a mother's cry. "Thank you," the woman said, not with her mouth but in his thoughts. The words arrived clear and slow, like stones set in a row. Her actual voice followed, quiet and careful in standard. "You saved my blood. You carried them from fire." Eli stood straighter than he meant to. "Anyone would have," he said. Though he knew that was not true, the woman's eyes narrowed with a kind of kindness. "No," she said in both voice and thought. "Not anyone." She placed her hand over Sarah's and Leo's heads, a blessing. "I am Elara of the Lunari. These are my daughters." "Eli Ward," he said. "Cargo pilot, part-time mechanic, full-time idiot, my captain says." He glanced at the wreck field. "Are there any others?" Elara's gaze went to the twisted metal. Her face did not change, but sadness moved around her like a soft, low ring. "No," she said. "Only these." Sarah let go of her mother and ran to Eli, grabbed his hand and pulled him closer, as if he might step away. Leo stayed against Elara's leg, but looked up at him with that bright, wet gaze. Eli felt foolish, like a man who has planted a seed and then does not know where to stand while it grows. Elara turned her full attention to him. "We offer thanks," she said. "You may name a reward." Eli opened his mouth and then closed it again. There were 100 things a man could ask for from a ship like hers. Credits, a jump drive upgrade, a new identity line to clear old debts, coordinates to a rich salvage belt. He thought of all of them and saw them fall away like shells. "I don't want money," he said. He looked at the girls. "I want them to be safe. That's all." Elara's lips curved, not quite a smile. "They will be." Sarah tugged his sleeve with fierce small fingers. "Come," she said, and then looked up at Elara as if asking permission. Elara nodded. Sarah pulled him onto the silver platform. Leo's hand found his. It was small and warm. Inside the Lunari ship, the air smelled like rain. Light moved along the walls, not the harsh grid of human lamps, but a soft pulse as if the ship itself breathed. Elara led them to a round chamber, where thin strings hung in a wide circle from the ceiling, vibrating with a low tone Eli felt in his bones. "Our vessels live," Elara said simply, as if that explained the music. "They listen." Eli had few words. "It's beautiful," he said. Elara faced him again. "You asked for their safety. You have it. But you have also earned something we do not give freely. She lifted her hand and the strings in the room changed note, a gentle chord that felt like dawn. Sarah stepped into the circle of strings, and the light around her skin brightened. Leo followed with a hop. Lara held out her hand to Eli. If you accept, you will carry a link. It will not harm you. It may change you. It will let you hear what is true in the minds that speak to you, and it will let you be heard as you mean to be heard. Her eyes held him. This is our strange reward. Eli laughed once, soft, because fear and wonder can sit side by side like old friends. You want to fix my bad jokes? Lara did smile then. Truth will not fix bad jokes. He looked at the girls. Sarah nodded, solemn. Leo swung her hand in his and grinned. Eli thought of the rooms with cold lights, of the way men on the border lied because they were afraid, and the way wars began because no one could hear the line between fear and fact. A gift that let him hear truth and be heard clearly was not a weapon. It was a bridge, all right, he said. I accept. Lara stepped close and placed 2 fingers on his temple. The music in the strings rose like the start of rain. Eli felt a soft pressure in his skull, then a cool wash, then a kind of opening, as if a window in a long-closed room had been unlatched. He staggered and caught himself. He did not fall. When he looked again, the room had not changed, and yet it had. The light had edges he had not seen before. He could feel, faint and kind, the outline of Sarah's delight, the skip-step rhythm of Leo's curiosity. He could feel at the edge of his thoughts Ilara's calm strength like a tower wrapped in clouds. None of it pressed. None of it took. It was like standing near the sea and hearing waves when you chose to listen. Lara lowered her hand. It is done, Eli breathed out. I can feel them, he said slowly. You can choose to listen. You can choose to close, Lara said. Your will remains yours. But when someone speaks with a mask, you will hear the cloth. When they speak with an open face, you will feel the warmth. That would help in a border station, Eli said, and in a card game. Do not cheat, Lara said gently. Sarah tugged him toward a wall that rippled at their approach. It opened to show a small garden under a light that mimicked a sun. Flowers like tiny stars hung from thin stems. Leo ran to them with the joy of a child who has found something both new and safe. Eli followed, slow. When Leo reached for a bloom, it bent toward her palm of its own accord. Are you going to leave now? Eli asked quietly. Lara stood beside him. For a moment, she let him feel the shape of her thought, not the content. Great distance, cold space, and also the simple way a mother counts breaths when her child sleeps. We must go, she said. This moon is not a home for us. Sarah looked up. Eli come? She asked. Leo echoed, hopeful. Eli come. Eli knelt so he was eye level. He felt their bright hope like warmth on his face. He wanted to say yes, but he saw the rook in his mind, small and patched. He saw the people on the border who might listen if he could speak truth into the air like a clear bell. He saw the men who would lie less if someone stood nearby and could hear the cloth. I can't, he said softly. The words hurt his throat. I have work to do here, but I will think of you when I drink my sad ship coffee. Leo wrapped her arms around his neck. Sarah pressed her forehead to his, Lunari style, and the small light of their love moved through him like a clean river. Lara touched his shoulder. Then take this also, she said. She placed a small object in his hand. It looked like a seed carved from glass, with a faint light inside. If your life is in danger beyond your strength, she said, break it. We will hear. That seems like a lot for a cargo pilot, Eli said. You carried my children out of fire, Lara replied. That is a lot. They walked back to the platform together. At the ramp, Sarah stepped forward with something held in 2 careful hands, a little ring woven from the starflower's thin stems. She slid it onto Eli's smallest finger. It was too small and looked silly and perfect there. Promise, she said. Promise, Eli answered, and his voice did not shake. On the dust, he turned once to look as the platform rose. Leo waved with both hands. Sarah stood straight, proud, her chin lifted like a little captain. Lara placed her hand over her heart and then toward him. The seam in the silver ship closed. The light along the hull ran like a sigh. Without a roar, without a blast of heat, the ship lifted and became a curve among the stars, and then a bright speck, and then nothing. The wind from its passing stirred the dust around Eli's boots. He stood a long time, his hand in his pocket around the glass seed, the tiny ring of flowers still tight on one finger. The truth-listening gift sat quiet in his skull, not heavy, not loud, just there, like a door he could open when he needed to. When he climbed the ramp of the Rook and the hatch sealed behind him, the ship felt different. Not in the wires or the panels, in the way it held him, as if it had noticed he had changed. People would ask about the wreck field. There would be forms and nods and small lies. Eli checked his reflection in the cockpit glass and thought, "Try me." He keyed the mic and called control. The man who answered used a brisk voice and said the path was clear, but then asked for a docking fee Eli knew was not real. The words were smooth. The truth under them scratched his mind like sand. "No," Eli said, calm. "We both know the fee is waived today." There was a pause. The shape of the man's thought, sour and sly, fluttered and then fell. "Right you are," he said, different now, tired. "Have a good return, Rook." Eli smiled without showing teeth. "You too." He turned the ship toward the black and the broken lanes he knew. Work waited. People waited. A border is a thin place where small things change big things. Once Eli had moved through that thin place like a man feeling his way down a dark hall. Now a window was open. He could hear the sea. He set the course. The stars spread out like nails in velvet. He rested one hand on the console and felt the faint thrum of the Rook's heart. In his pocket, the glass seed was warm. He thought of two small hands pulling at his sleeve, and a mother who had given him a gift that was not a coin and not a weapon, but a way to hold a line. Between fear and truth, human. Rescues two little alien girls, he thought. Next day, their mother arrives with a strange reward. It sounded like a story told in a bar, laughed at, turned into a rumor, then into a lie. But he had been there when the strings sang. He had felt the river move through him. He would carry it into rooms with cold lights and into dusty ports where slow cheats lived, and he would not be the same man. He touched the small ring on his finger. It glowed very faint, as if it remembered the garden. "Promise," he said again to the quiet cabin. The Rook's engines answered with a steady hum, and the ship slipped into the lane, small and brave, carrying a pilot who could hear more than words and a seed that carried a sky inside it. Behind him, twin moons hung over a broken plain. Ahead, the border opened like a door. He went through,